Yeah, I am curious about that, the head injury stuff in particular. Was that pre-comedy, post-comedy? Pre-comedy.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what happened?
Well, I've had quite a few. So when it was like 3 days before my third birthday, I cracked my head and got 10 stitches.
Like it busted open?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is my theory, not a doctor, but my theory is that made me more susceptible to like having a harder time with recovery with future head injuries to come. Because only 2% of people who have like head injuries have, and that number may have changed. This was like a while ago where I studied this, but have like long lasting repercussions from head injuries.
Only 2% do.
Yeah, I think it's higher than that now.
Yeah,
I think they have more information. They didn't in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But then, what was it, 7th or 8th grade, playing soccer, I had a really bad concussion, and that like changed everything.
In what way?
Well, I lost consciousness, vomited, and I've had a headache every day since.
Really?
Yeah.
Like at this moment?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just deal with it.
Yeah, that's
like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, that's the thing with my memory. You know about the memory.
Yes.
Yeah. I know, and I do it over, and it's one of those things.
You have to.
It just is your life now. That's just what you're dealing with. I get you. Did you have a memory thing too, or is it all head now? Head pain?
It's more long-term memory. I had a lot of, thankfully, due to like the privileges that I have for my family, I was able to took a while, but my mom was like, because I basically like changed. I was like super like straight A student, super nerd. I was friends with all the librarians. Like I was like studious book nerd. And then I hit my head and I couldn't read. And I couldn't, like, school became so hard, and it happened right as I was going into high school. So it was like, oh, she's just like struggling, adjusting to high school, and I was in 3 honors, dropped out all of them.
Was your family like, it's probably the head injury?
No, because at that time, basically doctors were like, because it doesn't show anything.
Sure.
Like you can have, now there's lots of other things, but it's like the scans don't show anything, which is great. I don't want them to. And doctors were like, well, you don't play football and you're not a guy, you're fine.
I hear that for women, it's pretty difficult in the doctor's office.
Yes.
In terms of being believed.
Yeah, and it's hard when you can't see things.
Right.
And then you just seem crazy. And I'm like, no, I know I'm not okay.
Right.
And it took 6 years before I got a diagnosis that the head injuries had impacted. Thank God I had an anxious Jewish mother that that was persistent, because I gave up, kind of. I smoked a lot of weed, drank a lot of booze, and was like, fuck it. Like, I'm not okay. I don't know why. School was my thing, and now it's not. And
so let me piece this timeline together. You get a head injury when you were really, really young.
Yeah.
And then the main one you would say is like 7th, 8th grade, was it?
Yeah, I think 8th grade it was.
What year was that?
Well, I graduated high school 2010. Okay. So I think like 2005, 2006.
I get you. Yeah. Yeah, numbers. Time is an ever-evolving mistress. But, okay, so that happens, and you were super studious, and then that fell off, and it kept falling off until, did you go to college?
I did go to college. So, of course, I had other head injuries. I had another pretty significant one in 2010.
Jesus.
And then there was, like, the fun ones, where, like, a friend accidentally, like, closes a door or the trunk of a car on your head, or like we smoked weed in an attic, and I would always forget and just stand up and just
gotcha
every time.
The Three Stooges type of head injuries. Okay.
But I had another one at dance, which I know sounds it sounds wild, but we did this like double cartwheel person thing.
Yeah.
And so as we were practicing in 2 small quarters, so as my head was going down, a foot was coming up. And that one really impacted my vestibular system. So
What
I
is a
started.
vestibular-
Oh yeah, sorry, I sound like an asshole. It's responsible for your balance. You know when you get drunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the beer goggles, and then you start to like, it's that.
So no more dancing after that.
Well, I did, but I started to fall. Like I fell at nationals, and that was a huge hit because dance kind of got me through school since I sucked at school then.
Yeah.
I did go to college. I should not have gone to college when I did, but I wanted to get away. I wanted to go to like leave.
It wasn't about going there. It was about getting away from wherever you were.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I grew up in the north suburbs of Chicago.
You know, no one sounds happy about that.
I'm really grateful. So
Okay.
like, right, I have a lot of things that I have been provided that I'm lucky and appreciative. And my parents, worked hard for that. And so I'm appreciative, but it's a bubble. There's pros and cons, like being a Jew, there's a lot of Jews there.
Yeah.
So, you have that
There's a whole
insulation.
Jewish community, right? Is it near Evanston?
Yeah. I mean, the whole North Shore, like I grew up in Glenview, border Glenview, Northbrook, but like Glenview, Northbrook, Deerfield, the whole North Shore has a higher Jewish population than some other suburbs. Don't quote me on it.
No, yeah, you're good. You're good. I have a question.
I have an answer.
Potentially. Here, I'll write it down. While I'm writing it down, so at what point does comedy come into play? Because it sounds like
A while.
interesting. Okay, because it sounds like you would have been like a doctor or veterinarian, and then head injuries, and then you seem to lean into the stoner lifestyle with a little bit of arts. You got dance. You got
I was
sports.
an artist, yeah.
Yeah,
Did
but
art.
then that seemed to be fucked up because of the head injury. And then you go into college, but that's less about education, more about escaping where you're from and kind of expanding. So at
Getting
what
away.
point does comedy even come into your mind?
Much later. It'll be 2 years come February.
Oh, you're a COVID
Or
comic.
March, yeah.
Okay.
But it's not because of the pandemic. It was because of a breakup.
Classic.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I hear about that while I write this question
Yes,
down?
yes.
Okay.
So, what? It's 2024 now. Fuck. 2023 was my 1 year, so this will be my 2 years. So I guess I started 2022. That's how math works. Numbers. I got dumped after a 6-year long distance international relationship. Yeah. That was a choice. I don't recommend. But if you do date someone with an accent, tongue twisters, they're entertaining. And that happened, I don't know, like Labor Day. And even though it needed to happen and it was the right thing, and I'm glad. And now I'm glad because I don't think I had the balls to do it and it needed to happen. We both weren't happy. And, if someone brings up marriage and you imagine yourself running away at the altar, not a great sign.
I agree.
You know?
You were in this relationship for 6 years?
6
And it
years.
was long distance all 6 years?
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably, no offense to your relationship.
I'm not
that's
offended.
probably-
There's so much that was good about it, and I'm grateful for this human. And it needed to end, but it was still a really hard breakup. I took it really hard. The way that it ended was really hard, and he didn't break up with me in the best way.
Oh, no.
Like we were planning to visit each other, and he had been thinking about the breakup for a while, and just it was very I was a little blindsided. Again, it needed to happen.
Yeah.
It was the right decision. So I was really upset, and then I got in, I joined a bowling league. I joined a kickball.
Hold on. A bowling league. They still do that?
Yeah.
I just remember Alley Cat Strike on the Disney Channel. But that's fascinating. Okay, why?
My best friend was like, bitch, we got to do shit.
Okay, just something.
She was getting married.
Yeah.
We missed our first bowling league because of her wedding. But she was like, we're going to do shit. You're not going to sit. It's still COVID. You're not going to sit and just be sad. We're going to do shit. So I'm very grateful for that. So we did shit. And then my 30th birthday was approaching. And that brought up a lot of emotions and anxiety and kind of, you're like, what am I doing with my life? All of that. And I was like, I haven't accomplished anything on my fucking bucket list. Like, and I was like, stand-up comedy was on there, but I always overthought it because, like, I'm a therapist, and I was like, you know, how do I hold both? And then I was like, I'll just take a class. Like, you don't even know what you're doing. You wouldn't even know where to go. Let's just fucking take a class.
I'm checking to see if you need to potentially choke up on the mic. You can keep talking.
Yeah.
Taking a class.
So I took a class at Second City.
Yeah, you're good.
And thinking it was just a class, something to, like, get me out during winter and depression. Not really knowing what I was going to get into. Thinking I'd take a class, check it off my bucket list, be done. Clearly, not the case.
Not the case at all.
I loved it. I was decent and delusional.
You gotta be.
You have to be.
Yeah.
And here I am. And I at first, like, I was like, oh, it's just a thing like kickball. And then some other comics were like, Jen, no, you want this. And it's scary to admit that, because if you want it, then
you have something to lose now.
Yeah. And you know, I was like, oh, it's just a thing. And now it's like, I really want it.
I'm going to show you this, and we'll circle back to it if you want to talk about it. Also, my handwriting is atrocious. My apologies. Do you know what I'm saying? Why
yeah.
Because I could easily...
Yes, we can talk about it. I just don't want to go into that.
Yeah. That I feel like it could have easily turned into it, but...
That's why I set that limit.
Yeah. We'll get there when we get there. But with comedy, so what was it about it that clicked for you?
Well, with writing, you know, because I loved to read and write before I hit my head, and obviously I've had to read and write, like, to get through stuff, but it was something I struggled. I always loved creative writing, and I always loved the idea of... I've always loved comedy. Like, I've loved comedy. I think always been kind of funny, but, like, not...
Stand-up comedy is a different type of funny.
It is, but I've always loved comedy, and my family and I went to see Chris Redd at Second City.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And this was years before I started comedy, but it was, like, during Cosby time, when Cosby had came out, you know, or he didn't come out.
Sure,
he
when
was
it all got...
accused.
Yeah.
And when we were going to the show, my dad was in a Cosby sweater. And I was like, Dad, you're going to get made fun of. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, Dad, you are. And we were sat, like, front. First thing Chris does when he comes out, what is that? Like, brought my dad on stage. Like, my whole family was made fun of the entire show.
How did your dad handle it?
Oh, great.
Okay.
Dad's a champ. Thank God. Like, I'm very grateful. My whole family seen me perform, and I don't have a clean act, and my dad's chill. I did have to explain what Eiffel Towering is to my dad. Okay. I didn't go into detail because I haven't done it, but
okay. Are they gonna watch this?
Maybe. I don't know. Hi, Dad. I don't know.
So when it comes to the comedy classes, I am working on not being such a judgmental, pretentious asshole.
You can judge. I don't get it. It's fair.
I've always had a sense of judgment towards the comedy class, or the idea of it. It's always felt like a scam to me. Oh, okay. I'll get into that. Let me give some more context, and then we'll get into that. It felt like a scam because to me, and I know that there is no right way to do comedy. There's no right way to do art. But there's something about that feels off. It's like you could very easily go to an open mic for free or a drink.
Yeah.
And sit and watch.
Yeah.
And figure out from there. But
I wasn't going to.
That's where I give some reprieve to the comedy class. Sometimes people need a little bit of structure to get thrown. Okay.
I wasn't gonna... Right, especially like I'll write on my own, right? Because I care, but I would have never written anything. I wouldn't even know where to start, even by like studying. I would have ended up like imitating other people instead of like, I feel like I found my voice quicker, and it's still evolving, but I feel like it's taken me a lot less time to find my voice because I'm not trying to like, you know, take after. Not that I'm not influenced. We're all fucking influenced, but that authenticity piece is pretty important to me.
So then what part of the scam, where does the scam part come in?
It's a shit ton of money, and I feel like I wasn't really, and it could have just been my teacher, and he was a great human. Great human, and I think at one time he was a good comic. I don't think he's actively working as a comic. And so I just wasn't like, I left thinking like, oh, I'm gonna like get booked, like, you know, just like so dumb, because I crushed, I like was the last to go on that show. I like crushed our like showcase. Got a lot of good feedback, and then, you know, you start, reality hits, right? Because I only did one open mic and then did my showcase, and then started doing open mics and was like, oh. And so I feel like hope was crushed a lot quicker, instead of like going into like, hey, this is gonna be a long road if you like it. And there was like a little bit like of like, yeah, only like 10% of what you write could be funny, blah blah blah, but like not enough of like, hey, the grind and the mental exhaustion, the financial time, like the whole commitment that goes into pursuing comedy.
People don't know.
Yeah, no one told me.
Nobody knows.
So I was just like whiny, and I mean, it's part of being a Jew, but like I could have been a little less whiny. But yeah, so I feel like it's a scam. And like, you know, if I knew more about the Chicago comedy scene, I probably would have taken it at Lincoln Lodge versus Second City, more affordable. I think the people that teach are actively in the scene. I would have gotten connected to Lincoln Lodge.
Yeah, Second City has a prestige to the name, and Lincoln Lodge has a more grounded to
grassroots.
Grassroots vibe to it. I get what you're saying.
Oh dear, what did I do?
I'm so curious. So, I don't think I understand Jewish culture.
I don't think I do either.
Well, I hear. So for me, I don't even know if someone's Jewish or not until someone says I'm Jewish. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have no. To me, everyone's white.
Fair.
In America, I'm sure if you go to Israel, that's a different. I'm sure if you go to a different place, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But growing up, you were talking about like having a Jewish mother, go in a Jewish community. What is it like?
I mean, I can only speak to my experience, because I think like there's a range, and I grew up not super religious, like always like, or like I got bat mitzvahed, but I remember I was 13, like questioning God. When I got bat mitzvah, my dad's like, yeah, that's chill. like they were. Your
dad
like,
sounds like a very chill guy.
He is. But like my grandma's a Holocaust survivor. So something I've really worked on for myself is holding space for like the identity of being Jewish, but not being religious. So like I'm culturally Jewish, and it feels important to say that, because of it's different than just white Catholic.
Yes.
It's not the same
thing. Okay. Culturally Jewish versus religiously Jewish.
Yes.
I do know. I've heard that. I've heard there's a difference.
It's a thing.
That you could be not. You could technically not be, for lack of a better word, blood Jewish, but you could be a Jew in terms of the religious aspect. Yeah,
there's a lot of people that convert. There's probably a lot of people that have like my college best friend's dad converted to Judaism, like lived in Israel, like probably is much more religious. Like I'm not religious. I'm both like agnostic and atheist.
Interesting.
Like yes, nice, you can balance. Be both. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a hard thing to describe, and I don't want to like reinforce stereotypes, even though I reinforce stereotypes. I have a lot of anxiety. Yeah.
Maybe this will help funnel it a little bit. Like you were saying, a controlling Jewish mother, I believe it was, or anxious,
very anxious.
There is a pervasive idea of anxiety within the Jewish community. That seems to be a cultural thing.
Yes.
What's going on there? Why?
Well, my therapist, who is I'm not a Jew, says it's like, there's this thing called like, basically intergenerational trauma is what it is, and that legacy. So there's something called a legacy burden through a certain type of therapeutic modality. And so she calls my anxiety a legacy, which I think is fucking hysterical. Emotionally, it's not. The concept is. I'm with you. But yeah, so like my mom, like her mom was an immigrant, you know, like survived the Holocaust. Her whole family was murdered. Like was
so nonchalant.
You know,
part of the game.
Bang bang. She
Is that what she's like about it? Is she like, yeah, this is what happened?
No. My
Okay.
mom's not chill about most things.
Fair
I love
enough.
my mother. She has a great heart.
Okay.
She's just incredibly neurotic and in denial that she's anxious, which is why I have jokes about it, because it's insane to me. Like,
It's, very obvious.
It's so apparent. But yeah, just a lot in her upbringing, and both my parents are Jewish. Like, it's Jew down the line. My sister and I will most likely change that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't want it to stay
No,
pure?
not that I care. I just I'd rather find the right person, and that, to me, like, being Jewish isn't a part of that. I'd rather have someone who understands me. If that person's Jewish, great. I also don't need 2 Jewish mothers.
Yeah, that's a lot, it sounds like. How can you tell the difference physically if someone's Jewish or not?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Not always. There's, especially as, like, time has gone on, like, there's Jews with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yeah, that's not normal. I don't know. I
It's not typical. Like, it tends to be, more olive skin. I could be full of shit, though. I'm not a good Jew. Like, I don't know things.
But even a lot of Jewish people I know they all say I'm not a good Jew. It's fascinating.
No, there's good Jews.
There's good. Who would be a good? Is there a good comedian Jew that we can speak of?
Not that I know.
I
Not that I don't get along with good Jews, but I once worked at a very religious Jewish camp.
Okay.
I was a one-on-one aide for a kid with cerebral palsy. He was cool as shit.
Nice.
And I felt so out of place. Oh, like, even though I made friends, I was so like I don't know all the kosher rules. I'm not kosher. I'm gonna eat what I want to. Like, I just don't get a lot of religion, period. It doesn't matter which. Religion is slightly perplexing to me. I respect whatever, like, as long as people can believe in whatever they want to believe in, as long as it doesn't harm others.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough because usually there's always someone who's going to game the system. Like, to me, capitalism, in theory, is very reasonable. It's whoever makes the best thing wins. But then there's someone who's like conniving and who has no empathy, who will take the concept and manipulate it into something to hurt other people.
I think it's the systems. I mean, people but like the system of religion or the system of capitalism, rather than like an individual pursuing capitalism.
Interesting.
I think there's people with greed and capitalism is, it intersects with religion, but it's separate versus, like, I feel like you can, like, greed shows up more in capitalism versus like religion. There's
it's a lot.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
the psychology behind it, what it means to different people, the evolution of it, the differences between Eastern and Western religions like Eastern religions, really interesting to me. I studied like Buddhism in high school and college, and that's super interesting to me.
Yeah.
I can't say more about it except that it was interesting, and
I'm with you.
I liked exposing myself to different belief systems. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's important to be well-rounded.
Yeah, and to understand humans. I think growing up in a bubble, it was like, I want to understand outside the bubble.
That's interesting. So I relate, kind of.
You seem confused and almost like upset that you relate.
Well,
you're like, God damn it, I relate to a white woman.
It's more that I relate to being in a bubble.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about my background, where I'm from?
A little bit. I know you grew up in a white neighborhood, right?
A lot of cop families.
Okay. Was your family a cop family?
No, not technically. No, my mom was a social worker and worked in a prison. So technically, she had my mom had made sure she put the little badge thing on our car so that if I got pulled over, the cops would be a little more chill, and they are. It was interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, privilege is a thing.
Yeah, she would put that up there.
That's smart of her. Unfortunately,
cops would pull me over and they would be like, "Whose car is this?" And I'd be like, "My mom, officer." And he'd be like, "What's that there on the hanging there?" And I was like, "She works in a prison." And he's like, "Okay, on your way." And then the tensity would go away and I would escape. But where I grew up in a bubble, but the bubble was not my own culture.
Yeah.
So I try to escape that bubble to find my own culture. And it almost seems like you were trying to get away from that culture.
It does sound like that, yeah. I'm making where I grew up sound much more Jewish than it was.
Okay.
Like, there was more Jews compared to other areas. I wasn't so much so escaping the Jewish culture. I was escaping, like, North Shore, like, to me, so you know the movie Mean Girls?
Yes.
To me, I love the movie, great, but, like, it was based off the North Shore area.
Oh. Okay.
And that's whenever, because I went to undergrad in Montana, I really ran away.
Yeah.
Not that, like, that's not its own bubble.
Yeah. Montana's a decision.
But I also only applied to colleges where I didn't have to write an essay. So it was like 5 colleges.
Right.
And the acceptance rate was going to be easy to get in.
Yeah. But Mean Girls? What did
Mean Girls, like, so the North Shore area, like, I don't know, just like really fixated on materials and not that I don't have a little of that within me. I do. I like things.
Yeah. We all like our trinkets.
Yeah, but just I don't know, like the emphasis of like status and prestige and like needing to like present a certain way and needing to be cool and needing to like, I don't know, I felt like a misfit. And I think I always will, kind of period wherever I am to some degree, which is probably my own narratives, but I wanted like down to earth. I wanted nature. I wanted like where it doesn't matter, like, not that I didn't come from a well-off family, but like where it doesn't matter like what your family has or does, where it's just like we're people. And I wanted to be a flight away from my parents.
Yeah, I get what you're describing. It's less about it being Jewish specifically, and more. It's hard to put into words.
It's a hard thing to like, because unless you experience it, but it's like this, like, I don't know. It just didn't feel genuine or authentic, and it.
Those are the words, genuine and authentic. And
I just like was so sick of being, and I think a lot of people actually feel this way, but you get sucked into like assimilating and doing what you need to do to like
survive,
fit in. Yeah. And I wasn't fitting in and was tired of trying to fit in.
And moving to Montana, did that help? I can't imagine it would, but maybe.
It's an interesting thing. So the reason I like even heard about University of Montana was my best friend in high school, her boyfriend, who was a year older than us, went there. So that's how it was like on my radar. And I was actually and I went to a large high school. And most of them, go to the Big Ten or like prestigious schools. I was one of 5 in my grade that went to Montana, which is funny.
Yeah. And
4 out of the 5 of us all were in the same dorm. I ended up making friends with a lot of Chicago area people. That like, because a lot of us were similar, or just like you're into snowboarding, or you got like a full ride because it's an easy school to get into. It is a good education, Montana. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely different. I was definitely like exposed to anti-Semitism in a different way, for sure.
In a different way. So was there anti-Semitism where you were from?
Yeah, there was a kid that lived down the street from me. I think he was more troubled than anything, and it was taught, but like in like elementary school, like it was writing like swastikas on the walls. Yeah, but Montana has 12 hate groups. I have a joke about it.
They have 12?
12.
They're all different. They're all their own individual hate groups.
Some of them are the same. A lot of like white, like a lot of like neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
Hating the typicals. I think it's interesting. There's like a Muslim hate group, and I'm like, there's 200 Muslims in Montana. They're
not exactly taking over Montana.
Yeah, why have a hate? Like, I get it. Not that I get hate groups, but if you're in the city and they're around you everywhere,
yeah, then maybe, but yeah.
The 200 of them, there's more cows.
There's more cows than Muslims in Montana. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What did you experience that was anti-Semitic, that was different?
Well, I am something that I don't know why. Maybe it's the way I like my parents were, but I always, you know, like who else? So my parents, when they were in pregnancy class, when I was, they went to pregnancy class, whatever. You know, my mom was pregnant, and they were trying to figure out who else was Jewish in the room. It's a thing Jews do. I don't know, because you can't see it, right? Like, as a black person, you look like who's
we
like
always
me.
give a nod.
Yeah, you can't see it, but you always. I was raised to feel different, whether I am or not. But like, it's. I don't know. That's probably a whole different thing to unpack.
So your parents were trying to figure out who else was Jewish,
and they did.
Okay.
And we're 11 days apart. Me and this girl, and I was just at her went to her wedding. Our parents are still friends, and yeah, but because they said oy vey, and that is Yiddish.
Even I would have been like,
as a Jew. Yeah. But so I think that's important to note, where it's like I'm always trying to like make it known, because also like people aren't great at hiding their hate, I don't think, or like. I want to know if you've never met a Jew. I want to to me, I don't know. I just grew up where I announce it. It's kind of obnoxious, but I do it. And so I think I made it known. And it was also, it's interesting. One of the more notable experiences was actually a guy from Boston, not from Montana, but he, on Halloween freshman year, he knew my grandma was a Holocaust survivor. Knocked on my door. He was dressed as someone in
the Nazis.
No, in the Holocaust,
as a victim.
Yeah, in those striped pajamas. Yeah. But it wasn't you don't do that.
Yeah,
that's not a Halloween costume.
Yeah, no, that's. I'm about to. So my instinct when I hear that.
Yeah.
Is always to be like, but why are they doing that? When it happens to me, I'm like, why? Yeah. I'm minding my business. Why? And I'm trying to not do it anymore. I'm trying to just let it go and be like, you know what? This person is going to be this person. But I guess for you, what was that like? It was the first time.
How do I conceptualize it?
Yeah, that sounds like it was the first time it was very blaring.
Yeah. Because you're always especially Christmas. I remember my family flew right after 9/11 because it was cheap, and it was. Okay. Stereotypes. Yeah. And they interviewed me and my sister, to try to make flying, not my parents, the news, to try and make flying look not scary. And they're like, what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, well, for Hanukkah. And they edited that out. So there's always been subliminal. And I don't think, at that age I necessarily was that's, I get that. Even though there is a subtle undertone of anti-Semitism. I get it. The whole happy holidays versus Chris, not that it's all about Jews, but
that it's. I guess I'm annoyed. When I hear that story, I'm annoyed mostly because it sounds like you're minding. There's something about
people minding their business and then the isms showing up and being like, ah.
Yeah. There's this. I was probably talking to Rachel about it. The idea that there's Italian culture and Jewish culture and Irish culture. Apparently on TikTok, don't know if you watch the TikTok. Good, don't do it.
Can't.
It's so addictive.
I know. I wouldn't have Instagram if it wasn't for comedy.
Yeah,
I didn't have it before it.
Smart. Same.
It's so bad for my mental health.
I wonder what the next generation is gonna. I think they're gonna reject it eventually. But
they're
knows?
Just gonna not recycle on purpose to speed up the global warming,
the doom that is impending upon us.
Yes.
But I was talking to Rachel, and we were, and apparently there's some issue with the Irish and Irish Americans.
Yes.
The Irish are hey, don't fucking claim us. You're not us. Mm-hmm. And this idea that white culture or whiteness in America is this new amorphous blob that is about taking and sucking away all of the good things, all the nutrients from everybody, and then spitting out garbage onto everybody. It's white culture to me sees something unique and interesting about another group of people, takes the good thing, and then just destroys the rest of it. And I don't have a full point with that. It's just something that has been mulling through my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets super like meta, but like this, like obviously like race, like differences in melanin is real and differences in ethnicity is real, but the construct of race is a construct, right? Because of oppression and systems and all of that. And so I think like when you think about whiteness, and I think a lot of people like, cause I will never say I'm not white. Of course I'm fucking white. I like, just like you can be white and still be Bulgarian or whatever you are. I think people don't want to claim that because of the connotation. And then but they also don't want to be like, admit to the systems that are at play.
Yeah, let me do a thing. Admit to the systems. I agree, and I've had to reckon with that as a man during the Me Too movement, specifically. I was like, oh, interesting.
Tell me more about that.
I would say that I had a pretty horrific relationship with women.
Yeah.
Really bad. Like my grandpa, who was my father figure. I think every young man needs an older male figure. I think that if you don't have some guidance, the testosterone and the hormones lead you to do crazy shit. And so my grandpa just wasn't around. He died when I was about 13, and he had a dementia throughout. So it was like through these really important formative years, I didn't have that guidance to give me some direction. And then all of the other older males were these white men, and that's never good. That's not gonna develop healthy relationships with anybody. And so I'm taking cues from these older white male figures. I'm shunned from them as well. Yeah. There was just no focus for me, and I didn't have a good relationship with my mom at the time. It was really bad, and my whole perception of women and girls was like, you remember the pickup artistry bullshit? Remember that wave in like 2009 till about 2015 maybe? There was this wave of pickup artistry.
By pickup artistry, you mean like hitting on women or pickpocketing?
Hitting on women.
Okay.
Yes, hitting on women.
So the like, can I have your number? That kind of thing?
Yeah, that, but way more manipulative.
Okay.
Like things like negging. You know what negging is?
The word sounds familiar, but I can't define it.
It would be like if we were at a bar and I wanted to hit on you, I'd be like, man, I really love that sweater. It makes you look less big, you know?
Oh, so that compliment insult.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what the idea is to bring that person's self-esteem down and bring yourself up. It's really manipulative. It's really fucked up. Yeah. So I was interested in that stuff. I was trying to find myself as a man in a lot of ways, and I was having trouble with that because I went from this very white oppressive space from white men generally to a very white oppressive space from white women, very feminist women, but
that's hard to know what to do with all that.
Yeah.
And not to know who am I
as a black man?
Yeah.
Who the fuck am I? And so there's a lot of stuff. Like I just focused. I mean, you know, I do a lot of shit now. I'm sign language and the jujitsu and the drawing and the Spanish and I realized idle hands are the devil's playthings. If I don't have some productive shit to do, I do unproductive shit. And during the Me Too movement, when all of these stories were coming out, I would talk to female friends or women I was talking to at the time, and they would all tell me, all of them had stories. Yeah. All of them had stories. Yeah. And it ranged from old school like rape all the way to just being harassed on a daily basis.
Well, most of us also have a range. Like I could what color do you want? We got a range.
Absolutely. There's a whole spectrum within that. And then I had an ex-girlfriend talk to. We talked a little bit, and she's like, "Yeah, you made me uncomfortable back then." I was like, "Oh no." It never
Well, we're not taught it.
Right.
Like, I'm sure there's times I've thought about this. I'm sure there's times where I've made men uncomfortable. Like in college when I was going through my own shit, but like, I think there's times where I'm like thought back and I was like, was I was this person more fucked up than I was? And would they have consented if they weren't? And was I in a place to conceptualize that?
It's complicated.
It's complicated, and we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Especially when we need to. We don't talk about when we're young. It's not until, like...
some shit already goes down.
Yeah, and then it's like, fuck.
Yeah. But during that point, I took a look at it, and I'm big on empathy. So for me, it was like, okay, as a black person, I keep bitching about racism and all of these stories or whatever, and I was hearing all of these female perspectives, and I was like, oh, that reminds me of what I experienced, but the female version of it, essentially.
Okay.
And so through that lens, I was able to be like, okay, I get it. Like, I used to be like, well, someone's hitting on you, why is that bad? Someone wants to fuck you, why is that bad? I want to fuck everybody, so why is that bad? And it's like there's some subtlety, and there's nuance, and there's some maturity that needs to be. And you need to understand, like, hey, man, sometimes people don't want to get hit on. Hey, saying I'm a good black person is not necessarily a compliment. Like, it's about...
It's not a compliment.
It's not, right. But white people would be like, well, they're saying you're a good black. And
But that's implying that all... Yeah.
Right. And so those nuances, if you take them in good faith, you'll understand.
Yeah,
If you don't take
I
them in
think
good
we can
faith,
all... At the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah.
And humanity, whatever difference is, I don't think we're that different. Like, we have lots of different experiences, wildly different. I'm not going to be like, you and I are the same. Like, no, we're not.
I know what you're saying.
But, like, that's, for me, humanity is, like, a really big thing that I come to. Like, I'm insane. I subscribe to both Trump's and... I don't know if it was during Hillary's. Basically, I subscribe to both sides. I'm locked I
in.
don't recommend it.
Yeah.
It's not good. But just so I can understand, so the people that maybe I could, like, I'm really big on discourse and, like, dialects, like, holding space for things that might seem opposite. And we are such a binary thing. Like, we become so binary and so, like, it's either this way or that way. And for me, it's really important to hold on to that gray. And so subscribing to both was a way to do that.
I get you. I think I agree and I disagree.
That's fair.
I think the parts I agree with is it is important to understand an opposing side. It is important to not look at things in black and white. I think there's a moment for me where because I had that thing. Growing up, it was like I would try to, yeah. I also,
not to interrupt, but I also think for me, like, I get to use my white privilege to hold space. Like, I think there is a difference, and it's not for me to define that difference, but, like, for me, because I have the white privilege, let me use that to be a person that holds space rather than, like, because it probably feels different for you to hold space for those conversations than for me.
It's very frustrating. I'll give an example of me holding space for a conversation.
Some of these.
Well, it's so this type of conversation, this example I'm going to give is pervasive through my whole life, but this is just one example.
Yeah.
I was talking to this young white boy about the George Floyd stuff and all the stuff that was going on. I think I was on Omegle wasting my time because it was quarantine.
Probably.
And this kid said he was speaking very sincerely. He was not trolling. I could feel he wasn't trolling. He said, well, I don't understand it. If black people just stop fighting for their rights, then violence won't happen to them. And it wasn't a joke. He wasn't like he was like
didn't understand.
Could not wrap his mind around what he just said. And I said, okay, all right, man. I'm gonna give you space for this conversation. So what you're telling me, say exactly again. He said it again. I said, okay. Now think about this from my perspective. You just told me to stop fighting for my rights
to exist, so
I can exist peacefully. Maybe
it's not peacefully. No.
It's not. Inherently, it's not. And he took a second, and the wheels were turning a little bit. But I don't know this fucking kid. He's probably gonna go off to Montana and do more Montana shit. And I've just come to this place where I'm like, okay, well, I have lines now. I will give you I'll give you that space up until this line. And if I feel like, oh, you're tiptoeing around this line here for me, then we don't have to have this conversation anymore. This is a waste of my time.
I agree with that, though. I think about preserving your peace.
Yeah.
For me, I will engage with willingness.
Mm-hmm.
I won't engage because there's people a lot of people I went to school with, clearly they fall into the unwilling category.
Yeah.
The ones that are especially more from Montana and grew up, graduated high school class, 13 people.
Yeah.
They were all white, willingness to not just have the conversation, but to have the conversation understand. Because there's a very big difference of I'm going to have the conversation to argue back versus I'm going to have the conversation to really hold space to understand. And that's something I try to hold myself accountable to because it's hard.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard. All of it's hard.
Humaning's hard.
It's very hard. Another thing I wrote down was you found out you were an introvert.
Yes, I didn't realize that maybe past couple of years. I always thought I was extroverted because I'm chatty. And I think now, this year I moved into private practice as a therapist. And I think I just realized how much humans drain me. Because the introvert is more that you need alone time to recharge. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I've always been that. I just didn't realize it. And so I took it probably in more inappropriate ways because I didn't recognize and couldn't communicate that need. Where now I know I struggle if I go to a mic right after work, I struggle to talk because I'm I just or even be a good, respectful audience member because I just listen to people talk all day and I care and I was there and present. And it's not you're not getting paid, so you don't care. No, I've expended my energy. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be paid to care. It's just that I cared for 8 hours straight and you're on one-on-one, being present, being empathic, analyzing. There's so much regulating yourself, co-regulating. I'm spent.
Yep. I think that's fair. And good for you for figuring that out. I also, we talked before, I didn't realize it. I thought I was an extrovert, but in reality, I was just afraid. I was an introvert that was afraid of being alone, which is an ironic.
No, it's not ironic. I think that's human. You still have the desire for human connection. Yeah. Yet you still, I think that's introvert doesn't mean that you don't want to have connection with people. It just means that you need that alone recharge space.
Yes. And to speak to the open mic stuff, because I know I'm notorious for
I respected that. I think once I understood it, because for me, I would personalize it, and then once it was oh, this is, especially watching these, it was oh, this is Aaron. This has nothing to do with anyone else. This is him doing what he needs to do. Yeah. That it's oh yeah, fuck yeah. I want to do that.
Yeah, the open mics are work. That's work. I'm at work. I realized some point something clicked to me where I was this is my job. Yeah. I moved across the country. This is work. Yeah. And I have regular work in the morning. Why the fuck am I going to sit here to appease and make these other comics feel happy that I'm sitting here? I can't.
You don't need to. That's not part of your work.
Yeah, and the other comics the open mics, because the comics shouldn't be worried about my opinion. They should be worried about whoever the audience is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
What was them?
It gets hard. I mean, it gets hard because I feel in order to get the audience, I feel I've won over more audiences than I have comics.
That's good.
But comics are the ones that get you booking. And so there's that discrepancy.
Yeah, isn't it ironic? Yeah, it's you have to be undeniable. Every time you get on stage, you have to be so goddamn good. Especially, and I don't want to speak for you as a woman, but I'm going to, and I'm going to mansplain, and you.
Oh my God, please! I love it. It's my kink.
And the female comedians I've spoken to, please let me know if this is accurate. It becomes difficult. There's a fugazi. It becomes difficult for you to tell if someone booking me because they think I'm funny or are they trying to fuck me.
Yeah.
And that's a confusing place to be in. And
yes.
And you're in a bars with drunk motherfuckers and old people. It's crazy. And so the only way to ensure that like you're going to get booked, you're going to become a successful comic is if you are so much better than everybody else in the room. And that's the way I look at it.
And that's hard because I also don't want to compete. Like, for me, that comparison mentality is not healthy for me. Right. And it's when I get stuck. I do it, and it's not healthy. It's also how imposter syndrome gets really exacerbated. And so I try to focus on, like, being better than myself. Like, if I look from when I started to now, I am better. I, of course, want to be great. Yeah. And I'm not gonna, why try to compete with you when my comedy's not like yours? Yeah. My voice isn't like yours. I envy certain people's writing and stuff like that and get motivated, but what does being better than you do for me? I get it, you know, bookings, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know, for me, that's where I get stuck in trying to be better. And then I get pissed off because I'm like, well, I think I am better, but then I'm not getting bookings. And then it's like, stop worrying about that and just worry about my writing and writing things that land.
I will rephrase my statement because I agree with you. Not better than everyone else, just undeniable. There's a difference between just being undeniable simply gets it there. So your correction there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm working on that. And that's also, you know, you talked about that space of like not knowing if people want to fuck you or not. That's why, you know, people always ask if Tim and I are dating. Yeah. And we're not dating at all. We're friends because he doesn't want to fuck me and I don't want to fuck him. We are friends because of that, because he finds me funny. Not because I have tits.
Do you, how does it make you feel? Like, it's one thing for someone to say, are you guys dating? You say no. Mm-hmm. And then and it's a whole other thing for people, for someone to say, are you guys dating? You say no. And they say, you're lying. You are dating.
I think it's weird.
Well, yeah. How does that make you feel in that space?
I mean, I think it's just weird. I think that goes back to that, like, people think so black and white. And so, like, it's either this way or that way. And that's their shit, not mine. Like, it's not for me to unpack that. Like, people are going to view... That's not within my control how people view me. It's within my influence, but it's not within my control. And I don't feel good when I try to control how people view me. And it doesn't work. Yeah. So if people want to think we're dating, fine. I know that I have a supportive friend who believes in me, not because he wants to fuck me.
Well, that's good.
And if he does, then he has me fooled. But he doesn't because I know his crushes. I know, he doesn't.
Right. I'm with you. I remember, you remember that mic?
Oh, God. Which one?
The one, it was on a Wednesday.
The Gong show with the gong?
Yeah, where the...
Oh, God. Yeah, and I left right after the fight happened.
It didn't have... Yeah.
Well, before it escalated.
You know what? Let's tell that story. So, we're at what is the mic called again?
I don't know. I just call it the Gong. It's no longer that bar's closing.
Oh, that was
so
fast.
She's trying to well, I think the bar's been open, but the mic, she's trying to find a different place for it.
Well, I hope she finds a good place for it.
Yes.
So can you so we get so it's like a sports bar, and there's a stage, and we got guys at the bar, hecklers.
And they had been there for
way before
we were they were drunk.
Yeah.
They were drunk when we arrived.
So what was your experience through all of that? And when did you left after the...
After you went.
After I went.
So we stayed for your set.
Okay.
And then I'm fairly certain Tim and I said bye and then left.
And then the rest of it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we were there for like him getting on stage during your set and all that, but we were not there for the post.
Yeah.
Dumb.
So this will be fun. Okay, so let me do the thing. Okay, so what happened?
I mean, they were obnoxious from the start of the mic and talking through everyone's sets and just like didn't really give a shit. And granted, they don't have to. They weren't there for it. However, they wanted their voice to be heard, but would not just put their name on a list to have it heard. It was interesting because they were quiet during my set. But I had a dirtier set. I think it wasn't like I'm not raunchy, but I'm not clean. I did actually tell them to shut the fuck up. So I also think I meant to tell you. I think I also didn't make it easier for you because you went right after me, and I already told them I was because it's rude. Like, I get that people talk, and I get it because I am unfortunately notorious for involuntary words coming out of my mouth during mics. I can't. I can't help it. I'm working on it. I don't think I'll ever be great at shutting up. I wish. But yeah, they just were drunk and agitated, did not understand the mic, took everything as like, yes, we told them to shut the fuck up, but they also took it as like this big attack versus like, bro, there's people here. We will leave you alone. Just leave us alone. Mm-hmm. Right? Because there was other people that I think weren't for the mic and they just ignored us. Just ignore us. Even if you talk, we know how to handle that, most of us. Like, we're going to just, it's annoying, but we'll ignore it. It's when you talk at us and engage with us. Mm-hmm. What happened with you was bizarre. I swear the most bizarre things happen.
Yeah. with my experience in comedy?
It's perplexing. I mean, like, I got really nervous. I thought he was going to come up and, like, hit you.
Yeah.
You kept your cool. That's one thing I know you don't always keep your cool, but you kept your cool, and this man got very close to you.
Yeah.
After doing the worm.
Yep.
Which is, shit. Like, that's how most good fights start. Look what my body could do. The worm. Now I'm going to beat your ass.
I can't believe that man did that. And felt so, like this is going to win.
Entitled to it.
Yeah. I think this is going back to jiu-jitsu, because I always go back to it now.
Yeah.
But after doing jiu-jitsu long enough, you can start to tell when someone's actually going to get violent or not.
I believe that. For me, as a woman, and who doesn't trust drunk people, especially drunk men.
That's fair.
And who sees a white man approaching a black man.
Yeah. And is
my spidey sense. Not that I would do, like, could do anything, you know, because in those circumstances, I'm always like, what would I do? Yeah. Calling the cops isn't. That's
what you do, but that's
not going to help you.
Not necessarily, no. Yeah.
Most likely, no. And so that's where I think about that. And so I think that's where my head goes to the worst case scenario, which it tends to do. And yeah, so that's where my brain went, was like, well, fuck, what do we not that you need me to protect you.
That's appreciated.
However,
you care, and that's appreciated.
Yeah.
My experience of it, so I was standing over when your set was going on. I was standing near them because I wanted to get as much information.
You sneaky bitch!
I was like,
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I knew that they were gonna do whatever they were gonna do.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need as much to talk about. I need to hear what are their names, like Give me some bullets so I have something to shoot off just in case.
And they were an interesting group too, because the white guy was the only white guy.
Yeah, it was. To me, they were like bullies, like the cool kids in high school. That's the vibe. They bully cool kids, not the nice cool kids, but like the.
That's not the vibe I got.
Ooh, what vibe did you get?
I don't know. I tend to like maybe intellectualize. Well, I do intellectualize everything. Not even in a smart way. It's anxiety. I got the vibe that like they were not cool. Like, I didn't think they were popular. I think they were like the misfits that came together, and that was their like token white kid that they like were like, yeah, he sucks, but like we'll deal, like he's ours.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know. Like, I didn't get like cool vibes. I thought I got like overcompensation.
Yes. When I say cool, I don't mean literally cool. Okay. I mean like Regina George is cool, but she's not.
She was cool.
She was super.
She was a bitch.
She was very fetch.
This is a highlight of my life.
But yeah, and so I think it just felt like how do I put this? Okay. I do not want to be condescending when I say this.
You can be condescending.
Yeah, but I'm trying not to be.
Good for you.
Thank you. I'm doing my best. You're 2 years in?
Yes. Well, I will be 2 years March 2nd.
I am 8 to 9 years
wow.
in. Yeah. And I remember 2 years in, my response was always shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And sometimes if the audience is like big and already on your side and you're crushing, if you say shut the fuck up, everyone's like, shut the fuck. But in that situation, it's like that's just gonna piss them off even more. And so it was mostly me trying to get them to just pay attention. Like, just pay attention and just say words. If you're going to say words, because they were talking to each other, but really loud, like just loud enough so that everyone could hear them. And it was like, just talk to me. And once you talk to me and this is a direct conversation, then I can start making fun of you. And that was like the thought process. But yeah, he comes on stage, then he gets booed, then he gets off stage. Then when you guys left, they all got in my face and were like, hey, bro, you didn't have to do that, bro.
That to me is such like fragility of like, cause like no one especially like, I mean, granted they probably don't know about open mics, but like our dignity is like, you can't have a lot of dignity and you can be respectful, but you can't have a lot of dignity and do comedy.
It's pretty difficult.
You know, like you were doing something incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I think to me it's hilarious. Like, dude, you just did the fucking worm on a dirty ass bar, but then you're threatened by somebody
just telling jokes,
like calling you out. Shut like.
But we all live to fight another day. I'm telling you. And by the way, if you ever, I would highly suggest jiu-jitsu if you ever want to. I'm telling you.
I don't like being that physically close to people unless I choose you for intimacy.
That's fair.
Like, I don't know, that like touch, especially like
it's very, very touchy.